I'm Dr. Kimberly Manning.
And this is Dr. Ashley McMullen. And you're listening to the Human Doctor Podcast, where we explore the human side of medicine, along with teaching, living, learning, and all things in between, using the power of storytelling, conversation, and connectedness.
Hey, we're two dope academic internal medicine doctors, but we ain't your doctors. So if you perceive anything we say here as medical advice, no, it ain't that. Also, the things we say, they only reflect our brilliant Black woman magic mind and not our employers.
You could have been anywhere, y'all, but you chose to be here with us, and we appreciate you. Let's go. And we are now recording. I'll be sure to keep you in tune with when the recording starts and stops in case you want to bust out into spontaneous song.
When I tell you that gave my sister her whole life, her whole life. She's like, I was dying laughing when you started singing Portuguese Love. She said, did you really not know she was recording? I said, no. I mean, it's all good too. They need to know about Tina Marie singing Portuguese. I won't sing it again. How are you doing today on a scale of 1 to 5?
I'm going to give myself like a 4.5, 4.6, only because my sleep has still been not the best these last couple nights. And it's just like, all it takes is a couple nights to be kind of throwing you off your game. So I'm working on it, but it's a struggle.
Yeah, I was just in Chicago for some work-related travel, and I realized that I don't care how nice the hotel is, I just do not sleep well away from home. So my sleep can only be so good, and yeah, it was nice to get a night's rest at home. Yeah, I feel you.
Yeah. But, other than that, I'm doing pretty good. I've been really hype about this new book that I picked up, or new-ish. But I don't know if you've heard about James Baldwin's latest biography. It's called Baldwin, A Love Story.
Is it by Eddie Glaude?
Nicholas Boggs.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I have not heard of the author before, but I know that he spent quite a bit of time on this novel, which was ambitious. It's basically a portrait of Baldwin's life, but really kind of honing in on his various romantic partnerships throughout his career and how that influenced his writing. So far, it's very beautiful, and I am looking forward to the many book talks that this author is giving, including one in Oakland that's like down the street from me in November.
Okay. Oh, is it at Cleo's bookstore?
I wish, girl, I wish. It's at a different spot. I'm not familiar with it, but I'm pretty sure it's not going to be as cool as Cleo's.
Okay. Well, I remember there was I'm trying to think what podcast I was listening to. I don't know if it was Throughline or if it was I don't know which one it was, but Eddie Glaude is an educator and historian who I believe used to be at Princeton if he's not still there, but I know he's written a lot and thought a lot about James Baldwin, and I've heard him interviewed a bunch of times. So that's the podcast that I thought of, which is why I thought of it. But yeah, I'll check this out because hearing about the love affairs of James Baldwin sounds like tea.
Yeah, I'm saying.
Remember a few years ago when I was talking to you about Ross Gay's book, The Book of Delights?
Oh, yes. You were a real fan of that one.
I'm still a real fan. But I'm actually mostly also a fan of the practice of appreciating small delights around you. So today with my ward team, when we started off, because we always prime the room with a culture question.
Yeah.
Ask the room, everybody, how they're doing today on a scale of 1 to 5. And then what was a small thing, one or two small things that delighted them, that they observed, experienced, whatever. It's really neat to start this practice. So I'm asking our listeners to this week have a practice of appreciating a delight every day or two. Can I tell you my 2 delights that I had in the last?
Yes.
The first delight I had was when I was in Chicago. I was walking from the hotel to where my meeting is for my board meeting. And as I was walking behind this couple that appeared to be probably in their 70s. They were holding hands and, they were walking at a good clip. These were not like slow moving 70 somethings. As we crossed a big, busy intersection, when they got to the corner, they stopped and the man reached in his pocket and he pulled out a chapstick and he put it on his lips. And then he handed it to her and she put it on her lips. And then they kissed each other on the lips. And then they held hands again and kept walking. And I was like, that is the cutest thing I've ever seen in my whole life. Oh my gosh. I couldn't get in their business, but it was
Yeah.
just so mundane, but it brought me delight. The other
Mm,
delight was on my way to work today, as I was driving through Atlanta, I saw this woman, also an elder, appeared to be like, I don't know how old she was, but she was walking with a guy who appeared to be a friend. He had on like some, some like jogging pants, some sneakers, like a little t-shirt, like they were on a walk. She had on some sneakers as well. But she also was wearing, seriously, I'm not kidding you. She had on this sparkly sequined dress, like a mini dress that was like a little above her knee.
okay.
And it looked like she just wanted to wear it. I mean, because normally if you would see something like that, you'd be like, well, is she unstably housed? And this is all she has. No, no, no. She was giving, I have a house. I woke up this morning and I want to wear my sparkly dress, and that's what I'm going to do. So I have decided that when I am an octogenarian, like I believe this lady was,
Hmm.
I'm just going to be putting on a sparkly dress and going on a walk for no damn reason other than that's what I want to do.
I am so here for that.
I had so many questions. I wanted to roll my window down and be like, "Your dress is giving me life." But I was like, you know what? I got to get to work.
It's,
But it was so clear that
hmm.
that was what she chose to wear. It did not appear to be because her shoes, everything else, she didn't have on no makeup, nothing. It just looked like she liked the dress. It was like
Man,
how when little kids, how little
that's
kids,
exactly what I was thinking. Exactly what I was thinking. I mean, kids just be throwing on what they want to wear, and it
like,
don't it don't match. It don't make no sense, but
I
that's what they.
know, a whole party dress for, I don't know, for your Easter Sunday dress, but also with some sneakers and a red backpack because that's what you're feeling. This is the space that I think, we say we are in, but a lot
Mm,
of us are not there yet.
yep.
Because even the dude walking with her, he seemed completely, nonplussed by any of it either. He's like, look, this is what she does. I was like, wow.
Ah,
Yeah. And if I was just watching her talk to him and stuff like that, it looked like this lady is completely functional. It just clearly was her option.
mm,
And I was here for it. Yeah.
I'm here for it too. I didn't ask you what your scale was.
Um, I'm like a 4.6, and I'm not a 5 because I'm still on the hospital service. And I had this like existential clinician educator crisis when I was like trying to fall asleep last night, which also
Mm,
my sleep not good.
yeah.
And I hopefully I don't like now lay this upon you and others, but oh well, here goes.
Thank you.
I was thinking about what a tremendous responsibility it is to train up young doctors. Like, you have to really be courageous with feedback. You have to be thoughtful with what you say to them and how you guide them. Because if somebody really needs like corrective feedback and you don't give it to them, then they just keep on going.
Hmm. Hmm.
And don't get me wrong, like for the most part, I'm working with some dynamite people and I've had great teams, but I still like feel an immense responsibility to be thoughtful and honest and critical, um, even more so with learners in these times that we're in right now. And it's times are different than they used to be, like back in the day, people could just be saying any old kind of thing to you and, you know, not be worried about losing a job or whatever.
Mm, hmm.
Um, but I don't want to hurt people's feelings. I want people to continue to feel psychologically safe. I want them to be able to respond. The middle schooler in me still wants to be liked. Yeah, and I've just been thinking a lot about that. And mostly it's a good problem to have, but I just want to not get complacent.
Yeah.
So
Thank
that
you for
brings me
saying
down
that.
a couple notches, but
Yeah.
I actually just went up a little bit because my hair looks really cute.
Oh my
I'm checking it out as we're on this Zoom. Y'all can't see it, but I mean, y'all, baby Jules and this little pixie. Hmm.
I'm gonna figure out how to take a screenshot on these things.
Because, I mean, you gotta sometimes compliment yourself. I was like, you know what? If I didn't know you, Jules, I would say, I like your hair. So I'm gonna say it to myself. I like your hair.
I like it too. I'm a co-sign on that.
Sometimes you gotta hype yourself up, girl.
Man, man.
Speaking of a hype up, speaking of a hype up, um, y'all, it is the moment you've been waiting for. There are few things that bring me more delight, speaking of delights, than logging onto this here virtual platform to see one of my favorite clinician educators and storytellers and runners and book readers and tree huggers and electric car drivers and anything else I can.
And you got the highlights. Thank you.
Oh, purple hair wearing. She got some purple braids, y'all. I'm here for that too.
Yeah, thank you.
Um, it is the Ashley McMullen. So, kings, queens, non-binary royalty, it is your lucky day. So, sis, that was quite the run up. I
It
gave you
was.
plenty of time to figure out what you gonna say. So, what is the what?
Okay. Um, I'm gonna do something a little different today just because I can't make up my mind. And I'm gonna have two segments to this story.
Oh, okay. I thought I was gonna choose my own adventure, but
Sorry, no, I can't hold that much stuff in my head at once. So this will
okay.
be a sequential story, but in two parts, and I think with two different whats.
Oh,
Yeah. So the first what is forgiveness,
oof.
which I don't think we've used before. This is a story that took me a minute to be able to tell. And I think that, it was helpful because it did come up this weekend. I was thinking about it. And also in reading this book about Baldwin and, just being able to, again, pay homage to a person whose courage was ahead of his time. To be living openly as a Black queer man in 1950s, 1960s America, particularly having grown up in a very religious household and all the ceilings he had to break through in order to own who he was. The first part is something that happened not super long ago. It was actually right towards the end of 2024 in December. I was at a funeral with some family members, and it was a older relative who passed, but it was unexpected and threw a wrench in kind of travel plans for the holidays. But I ended up pivoting and going to this service. I remember afterwards, being around a lot of family that I hadn't seen in a minute. The repast, it was a good time. There were a lot of drinks flowing, I will say, a lot of food, a lot of, shit talking. It was real cool. And then I went back to the hotel that I was staying at with a couple other relatives. We had just been chilling, talking, and I was sitting next to a relative that I was very, very close to, someone that I love deeply, still love deeply, and had always felt pretty aligned on most issues. And so we were watching football on TV. We're still, still drinking. And a commercial comes on, and it's like this really kind of benign, hallmarky commercial. Two men who are clearly, partners opening gifts on Christmas morning. And, there's no PDA, but it's just clear that, they're a couple. And, this family member who's sitting next to me is kind of smirking and shaking his head. Um, and so, I couldn't help but kind of inquire, just like, you got a problem with what's on the television? And he said something to the effect of, some things just shouldn't be normalized. This is a person who knew that I was gay. So I was, in some ways not surprised, but also kind of shaken by the tone with which he said it. And so we start going back and forth, and it's getting like pretty heated. And pretty soon the conversation turned on to me. And it became kind of a personal attack on what I perceive to be who I am. Although in his mind, it was kind of like he could separate, I love you, but I don't agree with the behavior type of thing. And from there, it became a situation in which now he's trying to make biblical arguments. And so, again, this is not stuff that I haven't heard before. I also grew up in the church, but what was new was that it was coming from him. And that cut me in a way that I had never been cut before by a family member.
Mm-hmm.
I remember in that moment actively thinking, like, oh my God, this is the end of our relationship. And that was devastating because, again, this is someone that I was very close to. And on top of that, it's stirring up all these feelings that I thought that I had managed to get through. So there's a lot of shame coming up for me. Along with that, there's this sense of loneliness and isolation. So this sense of being now you're othered, you're outside of the circle of acceptance of people that you love. And, that's the type of terror that, keeps people from living their truth.
Mm-hmm.
But on top of that, again, just to reemphasize, like alcohol was involved. This was not the context in which to be having this conversation in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
But at this point, like I'm getting to the point where it's just like this is becoming overwhelming, and I already know like it's way past time to remove myself from the situation. So I step away for a minute and then decide like, okay, you actually need to just leave. And I went upstairs to my room and, going to bed that night, I was just like, that was definitely like one of the worst, if not the worst experience I've had when it comes to dealing with the emotions around queer identity and Christian ideology. I was kind of deciding like how this was going to move forward because we had had this foundation of a very, very close, respectful, loving relationship. And this felt so out of line with everything that we had had so far. I opened the door to myself that I think I can find the capacity to forgive this person, but he's going to have to make the first move. When I woke up that morning, sure enough, I had a text from him in the early hours of the morning that was a really heartfelt apology. But just again to reiterate, that was the first step. That alone was not it. And so I would say a couple, not long after that, probably a couple days after that, I was back with family for the Christmas holiday. Me and this relative made a point to link up the two of us the night before the holiday. And we went out and we had a really good conversation. And I think the reason why it was good was because it wasn't with the intention of, let's prove our points again. It was, let me see why you feel the way that you feel. But first, I'm going to need you to see me and see exactly why that was so painful. One thing that I think is really important is that if you've never experienced shame or the type of fear that occurs when your deepest truth puts you at odds with possibly being separated from the people that you love most, if you've never experienced that, you got nothing to say to me. And again, I'm speaking for myself. I don't want to generalize this to every queer person, but there's no separating that from who I am.
Right.
It's not an identity I can pick up and put down. It's not an identity that you can judge separately from me.
Right.
If you say you love me but condemn that, then you're not seeing me. And that's something that I needed to convey to this person. And it's something I think he understood. On the other side, I got to hear more about his life that I didn't know before. We grew up in very different settings. And I will say that, this person had it quite a bit harder than me growing up. I'm not saying that that's an excuse, but it definitely gave me a longer lens through which to understand the runway to how someone could get to views like that. But suffice to say, after that conversation, I felt much more at ease with being able to forgive that person. But that pain stuck with me for, quite some time. So I know this is a bit of a longer story, but I'm gonna land this
No,
plane
no,
soon
no, please.
with this last part, which I'll call faith.
Okay.
Part of why this was so hard was because, again, like I said, it brought up a lot of stuff for me that I had not felt in a long time. You and I, Kimberly, have been open about our faith backgrounds, the things that we believe. And my faith has evolved over the years. It still comes from a Christian foundation, but, it's grown to something that I find that's very personal to me. It doesn't look like everybody else's brand of Christianity. And I don't think it's meant to. But there have been more than one time in my journey of faith that I have really questioned what it is that I truly believe because of the pain that it has caused me. And in this instance, I found myself at another crossroads in which I was really questioning what I believed. And you know this because I came to you and talked about it afterwards. But, I was really struggling with not just the shame and the sense of isolation, but now I'm feeling angry, like really, really angry because, here I am, all of 37 years old, and still having to justify my existence to people who claim to love me and believe the same thing that I believe, and to know that there are still people out there who will fight tooth and nail to let you know that you don't belong. Part of me just wanted to be like, you know what, screw it. I don't need this shit anymore. You can have it. Take your faith, take your religion. I'm not going to fight you for it anymore. And, you know, I'm experiencing these emotions, particularly now going into the new year of 2025. I just gotten back from Australia. I had just buried my last grandparent, Master Gunnery Sergeant himself. And, I'm with family again, and I'm getting ready to head back to California. And to be honest, I cannot wait to get back. And for the first time in a long time, I found myself, really not interested or planning to come back to be with family anytime soon, which is a very new feeling for me. And I ended up having to book a flight early out of Houston because there were a lot of storms coming through. And so I had a very, very early flight. We have a short connection through Denver and then on to Oakland. And I'm on the plane and I am feeling the weight of all of this stuff. And I'm like, tears are coming down my cheeks as I'm like trying to hold it together. I was just like, I just have to get home. I just have to get back to California. Again, this whole time I'm really having to level with God at this point. It was just like, you're gonna have to show me something because I'm ready to lay this all down. And then I get to Denver and we had been a little delayed coming out of Houston, but as we're getting ready to land, the flight attendants are telling everybody, like, don't worry, we got your connections. Folks going to Seattle, we got you. They're gonna wait. You're going on to LA, like, we got you. We already called the gate. And so, of course, nobody says anything about Oakland, but I just assume we're good because that gate's next door. We get there. I run over to the gates and, of course, the door's closed. I just missed it. So I go to the gate agent. I was just like, can you get me to the Bay? Like, can you get me I'll go to San Francisco. I'll go to San Jose. Like, I just have to go. Ma'am, everything's booked. There's nothing going out until like, it was going to be like a 5 or 6 hour wait in Denver. It's like, okay. So I go to the bathroom. I have a lot of bathroom stall tears. I go to the bathroom, lock the stall, and I burst into tears. And I was just like, literally, the only thing I can think to do is I have a friend in Denver that I had been actually wanting to see. This is a person who actually started as a mentee and then became close over the course of his career. I actually watched him go through his own evolution and his identities and having to own that against pressures of a family, then we're not willing or ready to accept it. But, I just showed up unexpectedly and the weather outside was actually pretty bad in Denver. And so I hesitated to even reach out because I didn't want him to feel obligated. But I'm in this bathroom stall, like falling apart. And so I pull out my phone and I was just like, hey, just saying hi. I'm in Denver, got an unexpected layover. If you happen to be anywhere in the area, just let me know. I would love to see you, but also no pressure. He responds immediately and was just like, I'm on my way to the airport. I have a flight that's leaving at noon. We were going to be in the Denver airport at the same time. So suffice to say, he got there and he had no idea what I had just been through. But turned out he was actually on his way to have his own difficult conversation with a family member. We got to sit in that airport and talk about it. And without being able to fully capture it in words, it was just this affirmation that I really, really, really needed at that time. That not only was I not alone, but that, I didn't have to double back on what was true to me because someone else was threatened by that. So again, apologize for the length of this
Mm-mm,
story,
mm-mm.
but both of those experiences were heavy on my heart, particularly because a lot of the rhetoric that's been going down lately. And just as a love letter also to all my queer folks, both in and outside the closet, just to know that you're not alone in this. And your truth is your truth. You don't have to justify it to anybody. If it's something that you believe in, let it be for you. It doesn't have to be defined by anybody else.
Oof. Mm.
Yeah.
I was on my own little roller coaster of emotions listening,
Mm-hmm.
partly because I'm protective of you.
Yeah.
Um, and so that was hurtful to hear. I think what's hard, especially in the times we're in now, is that we are all challenged to coexist with people who fundamentally have beliefs that diminish what is all that you know, what is your essence, right? Maybe it is that someone holds a belief that it is deviant to be queer. Maybe they hold a belief that it is divine, that one particular group of people should be, you know, the appointed, chosen group, and everybody else is beneath them.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's people that believe the way that they believe in God is the way to believe in God. It's weird because some of it is not really meant to be personal towards you. It's
Mm-hmm.
just they believe it so much that it's kind of like, sorry, not sorry.
Mm-hmm.
This is how I feel. And, I mean, I love you and all, and I don't want nobody to, do nothing to hurt you, but I'm just saying, you know? And what do you do with that? There's nothing to do with that.
Mm-hmm.
For the first part of your story, I finally realized that me forgiving people is an intensely selfish act. It is absolutely for me. It's
Mm-hmm.
not for them. It's not for them. And to have ongoing conflict with an immediate family member is too burdensome.
Yeah.
And so the gift to yourself is to find whatever is going to be the thing that allows y'all to kind of get on with life,
Mm-hmm.
within reason. It's also your right to be like, no, I'm not doing that.
Exactly.
But the other part, that's what's so troubling. The alcohol with your loved one is no different than, the state of the world right now. The state of affairs in the world right now is empowering people to just tell you what they was thinking all along. And it hurts to hear it told to your face, even though you
Mm-hmm.
kind of knew. But then you are sort of left with trying to figure out, how do I navigate my life knowing that this is true. And here's what I figured out, Ashley. It's kind of like what you already said. The truth that I have to get most okay with is mine.
Mm-hmm.
What do I think? It's like the patient that tells you you don't care.
Hmm.
Do I really care? If I do care, then like you telling me I don't care is not going to suddenly mean that I don't care. So I have to figure out, what do I think? I think the other tricky part is that a lot of these deeply held beliefs that people have, they are handed down generation after generation
Yep.
after generation. And the person who is trying to find themselves holds some of those beliefs too. And they are basically wrestling with, well, am I deviant or not, right? But God made you too.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember years and years and years ago when my oldest son, the little professor who has definitely been here before, I remember him saying once, and I think he was in like elementary school, like maybe like fifth or sixth grade, but somehow something came up about he had a friend who had two moms, and somehow the topic came up at our dinner table, and he said, you know what I think? I think if God knew how many like grains of sand there would be in the beach, if he knew that, if he knows that count, don't you think like he knew who was gonna be gay and who was gonna like, who was gonna do what? Like I felt like he knew that because he was describing a discussion he'd had with someone where they said, well, how are we supposed to continue to have babies and families if women
Mm.
women or men are with men? And he was like, oh, I think God knew all that. He'd already counted that up. He already counted that up.
Mm.
He knew. Um, and he wasn't even accounting for the fact that like same gender households can still have families and stuff. Like there's ways to do that. He was just like, whatever it is, God already knew all that already.
Mm.
Before you got here, he knew what was gonna go down.
Yep.
So I mean, and it was so simple. It was such a like a little simple way to look at it,
It's
like from a faith perspective. Like,
to say
he ain't figured that out.
from the mouths of babies, man, they just
Correct,
be
right?
knowing.
But this is like a thing that not even a conversation with somebody can solve. It's just a decision that you have to make.
Right.
Will I coexist in a space with somebody who holds an idea that hurts my feelings?
Hmm.
And the answer to that question is absolutely about what you need to do for your own wellness.
Yep.
I mean, I work in spaces that try to help people from historically excluded and underrepresented backgrounds thrive. That is currently something that is at odds with what a lot of people think. But then I'm working in environments still where I like I need to be able to still work with people. So what do I do? Do I spend all my cognitive and emotional energy being mad and sad? Or do I try to figure out how to coexist?
Mm. Hmm.
Um, I've chosen the latter because I think everything you know and everything you learn and that you believe at one point you didn't know it or learn it or believe it. It came from somewhere,
Yep.
from somebody of influence, of a circumstance that made you, ripe to be able to have that grow in you, whatever it is. And I think that's complex. And if I am a person who of faith and who cares about human beings, I care about them folks too.
Yep.
So I got to figure out a way to coexist. Um, I'm glad you forgave your loved one. I'm sorry that that happened to you.
Thank you.
And I do think that it's a very personal decision for you to permit who gets to stay in your life, because sometimes even family members have to get redefined if
100%.
if they cross too much of a line.
Hmm.
Um, but I don't know why you were telling the story. It was just like making me weep because all I could think about was just like, what do you do with that?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm not gonna lie. It had me tearing up just thinking about it, but it also brings to mind a lot of pride. I'm really proud of myself for how I moved through that because of the growth that I've gone through, the space that I'm in, the love that I cultivated for the folks who I do choose to keep in my life.
Yeah.
That space was available to me to make amends with this person, and I'm so glad that we did. I believe that my life is better with that person in it
Mm,
than not.
yeah.
But that's a choice I had to make, and I'm willing to revise.
Yeah. But beliefs are so
Hmm.
complicated because I think the people that hold beliefs that are hurtful to another
Hmm.
person, I want to believe that they struggle too.
Yes, 100%.
You know, they struggle too.
Hmm.
I'm not excusing anybody. I just now realize that nothing is just black and white. Nothing
Yeah,
is like light switch on and off. Everything's on a dimmer, and you kind of have to decide for yourself what what allows you to get the closest thing to peace as possible. And,
absolutely.
and sometimes it is, keeping a relationship. But you set the boundaries on it. So
Hmm.
this may be
Exactly.
something that we get to talk about.
Yeah.
Um, I'm telling you right now, if I get into a serious relationship, the person that I'm with, you're gonna meet them, and I'm not gonna tell you it's my roommate.
Hmm.
I'm gonna tell you who this is, and you're gonna have to actually be okay with it. I'm not gonna stay away. You know?
Exactly. Um, and the other thing that I'll say that I think we've kind of rehashed before, but just to name again, like, my grandmother held these similar beliefs. And, the thing that helped me with that we talked about on a previous episode was recognizing that, when people are so just irrevocably attached to certain things, it has very little to do with you.
Very little.
So you choose the balance with which you choose to love someone. But what we're not gonna do is hide who we are.
What we're not gonna do is hide who we are. What we're not gonna do is code switch,
Hmm.
because you know, somebody did that before so that you wouldn't have to. At some point, it's gonna come out of you. How much evidence do we need to see of pain coming out of people in ways that cannot be reversed? You know, we got to figure out how to coexist, and we also got to figure out how to make room for people's truths. And it's complicated. So I
Yeah,
think it requires empathy from all of us.
exactly.
Well, we went from delights to people talking crap
Uh-huh.
or
God,
drinking.
I know, right? The moral of the story is,
The moral of the story is you need to be cut off after one drink.
I'm saying, look, I'm
Oh,
actually this is week 2 for me. I'm actually abstaining from alcohol for the next 4 months.
oh,
It's
okay.
been it's been good so far.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good for you.
Mm.
I'm getting ready to get off of this hospital service. I mean, no, I'm not a big imbiber, but
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
I'd
Well,
have to give myself a little toast to not having to work so hard.
I'm not mad at it.
Yes,
All right,
indeed. Well,
sis.
sis, I will not be singing anything out of fear that you might start recording me. But
Fair.
if it's okay with you, sis, I'll leave it right here. Tell you, and also any of our listeners, our kings, our queens, and especially our non-binary royalty who may feel like, well, where do I fit into anything right now?
Hmm.
You fit here, and who you are is who you are. And sometimes being who you are is harder for some than others. And sometimes it's multiple who you are's that makes it even harder. And we see you and you're enough. And if somebody is out here telling you anything about, who you are or your worth or whether or not there's a space for you to coexist, you can coexist. We want you here. We need you here. A world without you in it is not a better world.
Hmm.
And if you ain't heard it from nobody in your immediate family or your life or your world, you're hearing it from us.
Yep.
Um, this world as we know it, if you weren't in it, would not be as good for us. So just keep on working it out, man, and keep on
Hmm.
trying to coexist.
Amen.
Well, I love you.
Love you too, sis. Thanks for listening again and supporting me again as you always do.
Yeah, man. And you always know I will choose violence if it comes. All right, girl.
All right. That wraps up this week's episode of the Human Doctor Podcast.
Special thanks to our favorite brother gastroenterologist, Dr. Chuma Obiname, for the beats. Shout out to the Dr. Ashley McMullen for editing and production.
Mad love to our podcast family at The Nocturnist and the Clinical Problem Solvers, our Med Twitter fam.
And especially shout out to all of you, our listeners.
Until next week, remember,
we see you and you are enough. Holla!